Did you break a pin on your Addi knitting machine? I did, and I'm going to show you exactly what to do in order to fix it. Now, I have an Addi 22-pin needle machine, and I'm going to show you how to fix it. And if you have the Addi 46-pin needle machine, you can follow along with the same steps. They are exactly the same for fixing the pins. So the first thing that I'm going to do is let me just show you exactly what you're going to need in order to fix this issue. Now, when you purchased your Addi machine, they usually give you some extra pins. So mine came with 4 white pins and 1 black pin. So this is what I'm going to use to replace one of the ones that I broke. Now, you're going to need a screwdriver in order to fix this. I have 2 different ones just to make it a little bit easier. You're going to remove 4 screws that are up on the top, but there are 2 additional screws that you'll need to also take out that are in the middle. So it makes it a little bit hard to reach and kind of get in there. So I'm using this screwdriver that's a little bit longer just to help me. Now, you use whatever tools you have available. It's really just a Phillips screwdriver. That's all that you will need. Now, I'm also taking some extra precautions because I don't want my pins to fall out once I disassemble it. So I am going to use my black Sharpie to indicate the pin that I am replacing. And I just have a little bit of painter's tape to kind of just keep track of these little tiny screws because I really don't want to lose them and they're so small. So I am going to just use the painter's tape to make sure they stay on the table and don't kind of roll off the table. And of course, I just have a pair of scissors here just to cut the painter's tape. So that's really all you're going to need to get started. Let's get right to it. On my machine, I know that needle number 14 is the one that I have broken. So I'm going to go ahead and take my little Sharpie and I am going to mark the needle and just a little dab on it just so I know where it is. I'm going to go ahead and mark it off, and I have the needle right over here. So I'm going to go ahead and just color it a little bit just so I know this is the one I'm replacing so I don't kind of lose track. Now, the other great thing to note is the Addi machine has 3 black pins, and the middle pin is the number 2 pin. So when you start disassembling things, you know that your Addi machine has each pin counted, and it has little numbers on the red pin. They're a little hard to see, but you'll want to make sure that you line up the number of the pin with the actual pin. So we know that this is pin number 2, and we want to make sure that when we put the ring back in place, that it is lined up with needle number 2. Otherwise, your counter could be completely off when you put everything back together. So let's go ahead and do this. I've already marked the needle that is broken. I'm going to open this up and take out the new needle, which is the one I'm replacing it with. So mine happens to be the white needle. Put that over to the side. I'm going to grab some painter's tape. I really don't want to lose any of the little screws. They are so small. So I'm just going to cut a couple of them out, and I'm going to stick it onto my table. And as I take off the screws, what I will do is just kind of put them on the painter's tape so that they don't roll off the table by any chance. So this is just extra precaution. You don't have to do this. I just want to make extra sure that I do not lose them. So I'm just going to cut one for each of the screws. And this kind of also helps me keep them in place, because that way, whatever screw I take off, I make sure that I put it right back where it was, and I don't have to worry that I kind of put it in the wrong place. Now, you want to be extra careful that you don't mix up the 4 screws that are on the top with the 2 screws that are on the bottom. So make sure that you also kind of put them on the side or put them in a different place so, you don't mix them all up when you're putting them back. So here's 4 little pieces, and then I just need 2 more. And this is where I will put the 2 on the inside. There we go. So put that painter's tape over to the side. We don't need that anymore. And I just have them on the table ready to go. So now I'm going to grab my little screwdriver. I do have the long one for the inside and then the short one for the outside. So I'm going to start with the short one. And I'm going to go ahead and unscrew the 4 on the top. Now, you want to be careful when you unscrew it. Looks like they are pretty tight, but you don't want to strip them. So be very careful. Put a little bit of pressure down when you are unscrewing it so that you don't strip the screws. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me see if I can get my little camera on here. So I just want to make sure you guys see what I'm seeing. Okay. So here's one of the little screws that I'll be taking off. And again, just some pressure on there and just basically unscrew that. And you can see they are really, really small screws. Definitely don't want to lose these. So I'm going to go ahead and put these right on the painter's tape. Okay, so now you just continue to take the other 3 screws off. So again, downward pressure. Be very careful you don't lose these screws. They are so tiny. That painter's tape just kind of comes in handy. You have a little magnetic screwdriver, that may help too. And I'm on the final one. Okay, so now all 4 screws have been taken off. I'm going to go ahead and lift the black ring. It will come completely off. That's what it looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and set that to the side. And now I'm going to go in and I'm going to remove the 2 inner screws on here. So those are a little bit more difficult to get out. And while you're doing this, you don't want to shift around the machine too much because you don't want any of the other pins to fall out. So be a little careful with that. Take your time and you can get this. So let's see if I can adjust the camera now and I can show you what the inner screws look like. Okay, so this is one of the screws right here. And I'll go ahead and try to get that one off as well. Again, a little bit of pressure. Okay, as you can see, they're pretty small. So make sure that you keep these separate from the 4 that you've already taken off. And then I'll go ahead and take the other one off as well. There we go. Okay, so now all of the screws have been removed. I'm going to go ahead and take off the red ring. You should be able to just lift it up. And there you go. Very simple. I'll set that over to the side as well. So now the machine is completely exposed. So you can see all of the needles are exposed now. And let me just show you the needle that is the broken one here. So this is needle number 14, which I marked with the Sharpie. Let me just give you a little close-up of the broken needle so you can see this. Let me adjust the camera. Okay, so this is needle number 14. And as you can see here, it is broken. You can see how it kind of wobbles back and forth. So this is the needle that we're going to need to replace. I can just kind of move it with my finger there. It shouldn't be doing that. So it is completely broken. So I'm going to go ahead now and grab my replacement needle, which came with your Addi machines. And what I'm going to do is just pull this needle up, and I'm going to be replacing it with the new needle. So before I can do that, I need to take off the middle ring. So let me do that. Let me just adjust this here. Okay, so this is the middle ring. And one thing you'll notice about the middle ring is you'll see a little notch. Now, this little notch is where your counter is. So if you remember, as you crank, the needles pop up. So this is the side with the little notch is where you're going to need to replace it right back when you put it back together. So that notch should be facing the counter. So just note that when you go to put it back together. So let me put that to the side. Now I can really see all of my needles completely exposed, and I'm going to be able to just lift up the needle here. And you can see here how it is just completely broken. So you can see here, this comes completely off. So now I'm going to go ahead and replace it with the new one. So all I will do is I'm going to slide it back in. You're going to want to make sure that when you put it back in, that your needle is facing out. Now there's really only one way to put it back in, so you don't have to worry too much about it. But now I just replaced this needle. This is brand new, ready to go. And now I'm ready to just put it all back together again. It's really that simple. So let's go ahead and grab the ring again. I'm going to line up my notch that's on here with the counter. And I'll go ahead and slide that right back into place. Okay. Now, once I have this right back into place, I'm going to go ahead and get the 2 screws that I've taken out, and I'm going to want to screw those right back in. So let me just grab my long screwdriver, and we're going to go ahead and screw this back in, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, so we screwed in the 2 inner pieces on the machine. So now we're ready to put the red ring right back into place. Now remember, these are numbered, like I said. So what you want to do is look for number 2 and make sure that your number 2 is lined up with the middle black pin. Okay, so now let's just look for number 2 here. Let's see. Okay, so this is my number 2. And you'll see the numbers on there, but they're a little hard to see, but you can see them. And then just line up number 2 with the middle black pin, which represents the second pin. Now you'll have to jiggle this around to kind of get it in place, but just be a little patient. Here we go. Just kind of keep jiggling it until it falls in. Okay. Okay, so I was able to jiggle it a little bit. It fell right back into place. Again, I'm going to double check, make sure that my number 2 on the red ring is right with my second black pin, or the middle pin, because that represents the second one. That's how you'll know that everything is lined up right back where it's supposed to be, and then your counter will continue to work correctly. So now I'm just going to take my screws, and I am going to screw everything back into its place. So first we're going to take our ring here, the black one. We're going to slide it right back in. Of course, the counter and the guide should go right next to each other. So let's go ahead and slide that in, line up the holes, and then go ahead and put the screws back into place. And that's it. There you have it. You have now fixed your machine. I'll go ahead and crank it. Make sure that it is flowing freely. And you're all done. You're right back in business. Now I can go back and continue to do my knitting with my machine. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this video, and I hope it helped out a couple of folks out there who had some of these same questions. So this now is a really easy tool to use for all your knitting projects, and it was super helpful to be able to change your needles, because as you can see, I pulled a little too hard on my project. My tension was a little tight, and I did break this needle, but I was able to fix it pretty easily with the tools that came with the machine. Now, the Addi machine came with these accessories, but if you don't have them anymore or can't find them, you can also easily purchase them online. So I hope this was really helpful for you guys, and thank you guys for joining, and I hope to be crafting with you soon.